Well, I feel welcome to New Zealand. Richard Miller from Never Not Here. Whoa-wee. And just a little over two weeks here. And I've known Glenn almost a week. So this is like fast moving, right? I'm just stuck in a jive. So I don't know, what did you think of those movies? We saw 2 movies. And the first one said everyone was awakened, right? I mean, I felt a heart opening there, and I felt kind of like a clear space. I don't know how did that affect you? Did you really have a feeling from that, or did you have a shift from that movie, or?
Yep.
Yeah.
It was very good.
Yeah.
Going into the light.
Pardon?
It was like going into the light.
Yeah. So, like in one way. For us to see awakening, somehow we have to know something about it or have some experience of it in order for it to hit the radar, right? So in one way, it's just, if we see more awakening around, it means something about us too.
The world is a reflection of us.
In a certain sense, right? It has to be, because if we don't really, I mean, you go out into the supermarket, into a mall or something like that, there's thousands of things happening. And some of them you relate to and some of them you don't. So then what you're seeing, the ones you pick out, say something about yourself. And I'd say that's what I call hitting the radar, or awareness somehow has to do with the previous experience, it seems, right? But all those guys were talking about an experience. And we're not having that experience right now. So then, what does that mean? That we should be somewhere else? That we should wait longer? That we should go into some kind of a process? That we should watch more movies?
Maybe.
In one way, what I'm trying to say is like that movie led us outside of ourselves. And it really, I don't even want to say outside and inside, but it led us outside of this room, for instance. It led us away from our neighbors that we're sitting next to. And it took us to kind of a dreamland. You agree?
Mm-hmm.
And it was in some way pleasant, right? Because we said, that's a dreamland I'd like to be in. And one guy said it perfectly, and then, I want to get back!
Jim Carrey.
Right? I don't know, is that what you want to do? You want to get back?
Well, some people are ready for it and others are not.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they live their lives unconscious. Some people here, that's why they're here. Because they see the awakening, or they feel that something is happening.
Okay, and then the second movie, it kind of said that it gave a story about a creation, or a scenario of creation, and then it said at a certain time, man arose, and therefore creation was conscious of itself, right? But creation, I don't know, maybe it was always conscious of itself. It just didn't tell the story, right? In other words, that man that arose, he had an abstract capability, right? Abstract capability is a capability to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that movie told the story. And that was a demonstration of how we live. We live in an abstract capability that we can tell a story. And from that story we can have pictures and images, and we can have emotions and feelings, and we can be propelled into actions. And we're all doing that with societies. We create societies. We create family structures. We create cities. We create nations. We create satisfaction. We create dissatisfaction. And it's all our capability to be abstract. Abstract just means tell a story, or to me, abstract just means something that's not here now, we can consider it. We can put our attention on something that's not here. Now, a tree can't do that. Whether a hummingbird can do it, or any kind of an animal, or a plant.
Can a child do it?
Pardon me?
Can a child do it?
Can a child have abstract? I don't know. A baby, I'm not so sure. A baby can do it. Can have an abstract vision.
We can.
It can?
Yes.
Before language?
Oh, I don't know if before language. He didn't say baby, he said,
said
child.
A child? Okay, a child can do it, yeah.
Yes.
I was thinking of an infant.
Because we're trying to relate the child to the consciousness of the cosmos. If the cosmos is not able to be aware of itself as a child, then the human being is even more than the experience of
I'm not saying that the consciousness of a child or the universe can be aware of itself or not, because how do I know? I don't know. But I think it cannot tell a story about itself and be abstract. So then when we're talking about awakening, a little bit earlier we said awakening might be not identifying with me, right? So then something that me, there's a part of me that is here and now and substantive in this room, and it doesn't take any kind of abstraction to be here. And then there's a part of me that fits into what this movie was a story. My memory of how I was and what I've done. And these are the two kind of poles of humanity, right? One pole is an abstract capability to think and to consider and to talk about the cosmos, and to talk about a Big Bang, and to talk about to look in a little peephole and see shapes and say, well, those are galaxies, and to measure all those things. I mean, to me, those are all abstract because they're really not here. And I'm wondering how different that is from our everyday life. That we're just captured in our thoughts and our feelings.
Or just our thoughts.
Just our thoughts. But aren't people captured in their feelings too?
Yeah, so when I see those images of nature, of those animals, it invokes a feeling. And it opens up a heart space.
They're beautiful images. They were very
images,
beautiful.
But just besides the images, the image itself brings a feeling about, and it's not because it's just beautiful, but because of the relation I have with the animals, the relation I have with nature, the connection I make with that opens up that place in me which is of nature. I'm not separate from nature.
You experience all that is.
Yeah. Through the image.
Okay, there was other images that said that there's some kind of destruction in the planet, right? That man is busy, and that what did he call it?
Mass extinction.
Huh?
Mass extinction.
Yeah, no, it was pretty cute because he said something about I lost it, I guess. Anyhow. So those images, how did those images affect you? The images saying that man was stressing the environment and overusing and consuming. And
So they go more to this.
there's a feeling there too, right?
They go more to this
Resisting.
man's reasoning and bring more into the mental space. But within that mental space, there's an acceptance and forgiveness.
So in other words, we're saying now that when we see a story of pain, our interpretations, our mental interpretations cause a feeling. But when we see a story or an image of pure nature, also nature that we've never seen before, under the sea, in forests where we've never been, somehow we're saying that that story is more natural, or that feeling is more pure, or without a thought.
It's an awareness.
Without a thought, possibly, yeah. Most likely.
It's an awareness. It's a connection.
Mm.
The other one creates a resistance, but if we deliberately experience all that is without judgment, without resistance, with compassion, deliberately experience all that is, like the beauty, but also the destruction, all that is.
All that is not.
That's all that is as well, you know. It's how we label things, it's how we judge things.
It's a world of duality.
Let me just tell you a little bit about how what I'm doing and how I've given my life to certain activities, and really I'll give you a little background on what's happening with me. But I got interested in telling a story, mostly out of business, and I wanted to tell a graphic story to help my business, right? And so that propelled me into video, because I thought I could show products, I could show services, I could show things that I wanted to do, and I started to pick up on ways to actually produce that myself. First I tried to get other people to produce it for me, it didn't work, and so I said, well, I better do it myself. And from that I for some reason, I certified myself for a public television, which I don't even know why, But I mean, in a way, I didn't want to do it, and I didn't think I had time. I was busy on my other focuses, and from that, I got certified, and then about a half a year later, I was at some satsang or some spiritual teacher, or speaking with somebody that had a message or had a heart message, and I said, hey, I could make a TV show. What do you think of that? And he said, yeah, let's do it. So I arranged the thing, and we made a couple of sessions, episodes, let's call it, and we did it in a studio. And so then the next month I thought, that's cool. Somebody came into town in Chicago, and I asked him if he wanted to do it. I did it again. And then the third month someone else came, and by then I couldn't really get the studio together because it took a lot of volunteers. And I just got some borrowed cameras and just kind of did it myself. I got a couple of cameras, and I put one on me and one on him, and we just had a talk, and so then I had these 6 episodes, and I turned them into the TV station, and they gave me a slot, which means like a weekly show, and like there I was, It's a public television is kind of like an amateur thing, so you don't really have to come up with 52 shows, they can repeat. And I've just generally been repeating them once. In other words, I'd turn in 4 shows, and then I have them repeat the next month 4. And from that, I just got myself into the habit of looking up people that have something to say about consciousness, or about spiritual teachers, or about gurus, or just whatever they want, right? And then I got myself involved in listening to him, asking him questions, and filming it until I probably got maybe 600 movies of more than an hour. And so I had a pretty good talk with maybe 200 people. 600 movies means I've repeated some. And then sometimes I do something else I call capture events. So I'm picking up satsang or meetings or workshops, or I'm able to grab that. And so then Glenn asked me, he said, in all that time of talking to people, something must have happened to you. And maybe you could speak about it. And what happened to me is that I started to notice, in myself I noticed what's happening, but I mean I noticed also how people are reacting to these teachings, because I'm doing these, I'm filming these meetings, and I'm filming groups, I'm filming retreats, and I'm just seeing that these teachings aren't all that effective. I don't know. How does that strike you when I say that? I mean, a lot of you have gone to teachers, and then you went again, right? And then again, and then you switched teachers and gone and went some more. And I'm just saying, like, it seems so dodgy, like, you know, it's not something you can, there's lots of excuses why you can't say about it and why it can't really work 100%, you know, and it doesn't even work, you know, 10% or 5%, or, I mean, if you look, people are following these teachings for decades. I don't know. Is anyone following these teachings for decades? Or are you all just here for a year or two? And then it's just a really puzzling thing. Like, something about it is not practical. It's just like there's some hocus pocus in there, right? I mean, which means like it's supposed to be a Shazam, which comes down and hits you, and it's called grace. And then a lot of people that have an awareness, when you look at them, their life is no different than it was before. It doesn't really seem to touch ground anywhere. And there seems to be a lot of excuses about that. I mean, they, you know, that, what's a good excuse? They just say,
I think it's everybody's on their journey, and as they go to all these different meetings, they're picking up different things that they need and taking away what they need from that particular meeting or satsang. And then they go on their journey, and you can't really tell how much that is affecting them. You can only tell how much it affects you. So you can only speak for you. You can't speak for them. You can't really tell what's happening inside of them and how much they're retaining and how much more that set them on their journey.
See, I think that's the way most of us are, that we're in there for ourselves and not as an observer, you know. And somehow I made myself an observer. And how did I do that? Because I was going to so many meetings and actually filming them, and then I was actually editing the film, so I would see it all again, and then maybe I was checking the sound on the film, so I would hear it all again. And so then somehow I just realized, here's the same person. He's asking the same question over and over and over again.
But it's not in the seeing and the hearing, it's in the awareness.
Okay, now what do we mean by that? It's not in the seeing and the hearing, but it's in the awareness?
It's in the deeper inner self.
The
higher self,
consciousness.
the consciousness, the higher self. That's what you're picking up and retaining. What you need for, what each person needs for their particular journey. But it's not a journey that they're going on alone. It's a journey that they're collecting to help others, to help everyone who wants to come along with them. So it's going out from them. Their collective consciousness is leaving them and connecting up with everyone around them who is on the same or similar journey and is helping them. It's like the 100th monkey.
You have to tell a story to go beyond who you are, though. It's what Louise Hay's message is about.
Say that again. You have to
tell a story to go beyond, your current story, so you can evolve.
Yeah.
That's what Louise Hay's saying. It's like talking yourself into a better space.
And maybe that's the reason to be.
So when you look into abstractness, like everything we've said tonight is a story. Everything that in the movies, the idea to go beyond the story and just to stay with the feeling is an explanation. It's an overlay. And really,
So who's
can you shift?
Who is perceiving it? That's the question. Who is perceiving it? Who has the awareness? Is it my identity?
No.
Is it my consciousness?
It's the I who says I.
It's the connection to spirit. It's the connection to source. And that's what's missing from the conversation. Is that you don't only have to go beyond your current self to a future self. There's a connection back to the source.
The thinker has the thought, so we're caught up in thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
It's to see that and recognise that when the thinker is the source of consciousness. We all have thoughts, but we get caught up in the thoughts. So who's actually realise that we get into that space where the consciousness thinks the thought, you're the thinker, but not the thought, because that's it.
Well, we can do an exercise right now and just be quiet and deliberately stop the mind, surrender all judgment or whatever, and then be the present moment.
It's so beautiful, like what we're saying,
Blah, 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 blah.
We're saying, it's so beautiful. It's just really so beautiful that everyone is offering and sharing themselves and being received. And there's a lot of spiritual wisdom, right? Right? And we're going around and around, right? And yet something is allowing all this. And we're going around and around thinking we're going to get to this something.
Mm-hmm. We're
Right.
moving forward though.
Huh?
We're moving forward, we're not going backwards.
Huh? Yeah. Is there any forward and backward here? Right? It's really so beautiful because we just did it. We just talked ourselves right out of it. Of the abstractness. Are you feeling it?
Mm-hmm.
You see how we got nowhere with all that? We really got nowhere with all that knowledge and knowing. The Big Bang and all those little graphics that show how everything went together and apart. And we get nowhere with that.
We got here. We're here.
No, we're already here. We didn't
Yeah.
got.
Yeah.
We didn't get anywhere.
We're here. We've always been
Yeah.
here. Mm.
And what kicks that off? I mean, what puts that awareness there? I don't know. What's the reminder somehow that says, oh, yeah, this is my blessed life.
Can you imagine the Big Bang happening in this moment, instantly, continuously, all the time?
Mm.
Can I imagine the Big Bang happening in this moment?
Instantly, continuously, all the time.
I don't know, I just don't need that thought.
Because that's
I don't need it.
That's the level of perception to understand it.
I don't need a thought that all of us are awakening to be in this space. I don't need any images. What do I need to be in this space? In a way, nothing, but in another way, I need a kind of a low level of anxiety. Right? I need not to be thinking about my appointments. Right? I mean, I can think about my appointments right now, because I am.
Stop it. Just do stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it. All the time.
Maybe I need some kind of like a positive thought to get to this space. You know, because a negative thought seems so, it has so much necessity behind it, right? And it just pushes me into some kind of a focus that is very narrow. So then, to open this space, you know, how do I open this space and just stay in this openness where things are running?
Feeling.
It's a feeling.
Just feeling. Yeah.
Simplicity is the key to life. Ask and you shall receive. It's as simple as that.
Or should I ask?
Who do you think you should ask?
Myself. Lots of times in these meetings, you know, we start with silence. I kind of like to end with silence, or find it in the middle, right? And talking can happen with silence. And action can happen in silence. It needs to happen. And thoughts and planning happen in silence. One person said silence was all sounds put together. A lot of times explanations are useful because of the effect they give, you know. If somebody says silence is all sounds put together, then we're not trying to run away from any sound. We're just allowing them to pass in and pass out. So then it's just another explanation, it's another story, but somehow it has a good effect. Just allows ease. I've been interested in original people. And I just came with the good suggestion of Glenn from a Native American ceremony. And it was a process, you know, it's called Sundance. And it utilized a lot of things that we as spiritual students recognize, vibrations and drumming and chanting and movement, and also concentration, commitment. And I looked, I was in Australia, and I went to search out Aborigines and talked with them and filmed them. And I'm interested in the Maori, of course. And yes, I find a lot of injustice. And I don't think that's the point of it. But I find a lot of our conditioning there as colonial people. We're colonial people. We're people that don't really know what the Aboriginal experience is. That the connection to land, we don't really have it because we're broken from the land. We can say we appreciate the forest and so on, but we don't have 30 generations that lived on the same land. And we do somewhere, but we don't know where it is, right? Somewhere we were, and somewhere we had 30 generations, and somewhere they were on the land, right? And we don't really know what that is. But what I'm finding is that what we do have is we have a giant numbness about how we treated other people. Mm-hmm. And that numbness is a closed heart and a separation. And that's another thing that I want to use as like a technique or like a spiritual practice. To show us, to put up on the table without any guilt or without saying you have to make something of this. To show us that we are treating people wrong, that we are creating pain, and we're not so innocent just because we're not out there carrying a rifle in a war. Somehow our nation is doing strange things, even in our own country, even with our own people, which in this case the Maori, in the case of the Australia, the Aboriginal, and I feel like if we can accept that, if we can kind of like acknowledge that, if we can kind of like say that no, we're not for that, we can stand in the square and just say, we don't have to make it our life work to beat down all injustices, but if we just blind ourselves to it, somehow that we do that by numbing. And that numbness is what really makes it so weird and so difficult to see who we are and to live in this space and to feel our connection with one another.
Yeah, and ourselves.
Yeah, because like numbness is not a surgical operation, it's a blanket. It covers everything. And it gives, in a way, a comfort, but in another way, it takes away all our joy. And that's something that I want to expose and use as part of like a greater awakening. I think you're understanding what, like where I'm coming from, because this, I don't know if you feel what I feel right now. Like you said, I can only speak for myself, right? But how we were speaking and how we were all sharing in the space of sharing, somehow, for me, everything just popped. And then we saw what's here right now with no practice, no explanation, no words leading us into it, no guru standing up here. Just because we are who we are, humanity. Mm-hmm. And So there must be a way to remind ourselves of this, in a way,
We
some
can
way.
text each other.
We can text each other, right? That's a good idea.
I'm just kidding.
No, you got a good one there. And somehow it's happening with me, you know, I'm reminding myself of it. But it's not like I'm doing anything. It's beyond a doing. And I would like to share that, right? You know, like, I would like to find words to share that, or find a way to point toward that.
Surrender?
And somehow it doesn't have, you know, I would like to do it without any jargon or any words that have been used before. So I wouldn't like to, I don't want to say surrender really. And it's something about living easy in an openness. Let me see if I could give you a hint of what's going on with me. It's something about seeing through neediness. You know, what do I need right now? Do I need to speak more or say things more clearly? Or I don't need any of that. I see through it, right? Just saying that just kind of throws me up into a bigger space. You know? So something in your life. So maybe I'm cheating because like I'm retired. I've left my home. I've got a certain amount of income, not what I would consider a lot, but who cares, So in a way I'm cheating because I cut my life loose. And I don't have the same boss to go to. I don't have the same job and stuff. I wish I did, actually. And so then I live a pretty free life. And I'm just saying something about that freedom and not really, a less of a level of concern about my daily movements and what I'm going to get done. I've got tremendous energy. I've got tremendous health. It's just coming out of this. It has to do with also noticing tension and restriction in my life, and not being that interested in it anymore. Because I used to define tension, I'm an engineer, so then tension is like, it's like the root of all movement, of all energy, is tension. There's a tension, like there's a tension between the outside cold air and your heater that has hotter air. There's a tension there that the heat flows toward the cold parts of your house. It moves. Every movement has to have a tension to make it go. And I was thinking, okay, tension within me is a good thing. I was defining it that way. I was defining it like muscle tone. I was saying like if I was all flabby, without any anxiety, I wouldn't be ready to jump, right? When somebody challenged me or something like that. There's so many stories you can make, but I'm not. But now I'm just looking at it in totally the other way. Like I'm noticing when there's like a closure or a constriction, I'm saying, do I need it? And I'm finding I don't need it. And so then I'm looking, when I talk about the mechanisms, I'm looking at, well, why is there a closure? What is this contraction? And I found it's always a story. It's always a story or a belief that something is awry, that the world is not right in this part, that maybe I can put my hands in it and make it better, right? And I can do that too. I mean, I can still I can still move and I can see things that I can contribute to, but somehow I don't do it out of a closure. I don't use anxiety-based call to actions anymore. And if I feel anxiety, I don't move. I just look into it and inquire in it and say, well, what's the nature of this? Why? How did that come to me? Now, so many in spiritual teaching, they say, well, it's what's real. Just feel it or something like that, right? But people can feel it again and again and again, and then every time those people get in their life and do those things, it comes again, right? And they're only feeling it, thinking that if I feel this, I'll get rid of it. They're not really inviting it in. So really, how do I manage it? How do I manage this openness and closeness? And you could make up a term. You could call it the open space of good feeling. And we all know when we have a good feeling. And we've heard from religions, we've heard from teachers, we've heard from New Agers to always have positive thoughts, the art of positive thinking, right? And somehow we don't really trust that, right? Because otherwise we'd have all been doing it. What holds you back from positive thinking?
Emotional habit patterns.
Emotional?
Habit patterns from birth. Reactions to negative input from birth creates that sort of cycle.
That creates the cramp, right?
Yeah.
The contraction. And then you realize that there's a contraction there, or you're depressed, or you're angry, or you're just frustrated, or you're whatever could happen, right? And so you know that. But then you've heard that you should have positive thoughts.
Should have.
Right? Could have, would have.
You can't be always positive.
Huh?
You can't be always positive.
Why not?
There has to be negative as well, otherwise it won't be any difference. There won't be any balance.
So then I'm asking you now, what's the resistance to having a positive thought? Or why doesn't a positive thought fit in that situation? In that situation where you're conditioned and where there's a contraction and where you have one of those feelings. And I say we've all been taught and told to have a positive thought. And why don't we do it?
You can't replace a negative with positive. You have to understand the negative, really the source of it in many ways, like you did with that woman. It was a story, and that's what an emotional habit pattern is. It's a repetitive cyclic pattern that has triggers that happen all through our lives, and we repeat that same thing. It's different people that do that, but it's the same thing within ourselves. So it's just being aware of that, and you can replace it with a positive, but it doesn't take the negative away.
So we don't trust those positive thoughts. In other words, we think they'll be fake. It's like a Band-Aid we put on top of something. In other words, a feeling we think is more real.
If the motivation for having that positive thought is only based on trying to compensate for the negative, then there's no ultimate truth to it. It's not saying that the positive thought is bad in itself. It's just that the motivation is to only counter one polarity with another. It's always going to keep you stuck in duality.
Okay, well, what's the motivation to have a negative thought?
Pardon? It's a habit.
Pardon?
Maybe.
And you're saying that a motivation to have a positive thought is less effective because it's only based on trying to counter a negative thought, right?
Yeah.
And so then what's the motivation of a negative thought that allows you to say that that's more authentic?
Validates the story. It validates the story.
It validates the story?
Because it's the path of least resistance in the world that is dominated by negativity, so that you don't need the same amount of effort to generate a negative thought, because every day you wake up and look at the news, then you go into that natural space, then your interpretation of the world that we're in.
It's back to
You're saying that the world, run that one by me again. The world has a tendency to go toward negative thoughts. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that would be. It's like the path of least resistance. That we're conditioned, or we're by our present psychic state of humanity, the tendency to see things from a negative viewpoint, from what is abundantly evident in relation to what in the blueprint of balance and happiness and well-being on a planetary and emotional state. It's not hard to make that as your natural way of relating to the world. So
right.
it's like...
So somehow you believe in it, right?
Yeah, because it's the easiest place to go.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just me.
You'd say no, huh?
I think that's an individual. You know, that's where he's coming from, and we all come from our own space. So we can only look at the world from where we are and where we're coming from. And we all look at the world. We all see it in different ways.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to bring it up, like just to talk about what is a resistance to a positive thought, because I think that we're saying it's not real because the negative thought really, look at these actions, look at those people mistreating each other, look at the thievery and stuff going on here, look at how the government's doing all this stuff, and that seems so real, right? And then there's a bad feeling about that, right? Because that's a closure or some kind of like injustice or some kind of pain. And pain we reflect, we can feel pain. And so then we're saying, well, somehow that must be a real thing, and if I just put a positive thought on there, well, that's the best that guy can do, or I don't know. It doesn't seem. It seems like a Band-Aid fix or something that doesn't really affect my life. But what I'm just saying is like, okay, before I was saying like, maintain an openness, maintain a lightness, and how do you do? And I call it the open space of good feeling. And how do you maintain that? With a positive thought. Keeps you open. And a negative thought gives a contraction. And so then I'm suggesting that, notice these thoughts when you're in negative thoughts and ask yourself, am I really interested in those thoughts anymore? Am I interested in this, operating out of this closed? I'm sharing that, like, what's changing my life so much is that I'm not moving from contraction. And I'm suggesting how to do it. Mm-hmm. And I'm suggesting that it's not like any kind of a permanent thing. It's just this moment. In this moment, you could say, I'm not interested in moving from a contraction. And I know things have to get done, right? And I know justices have to be righted, right? And but I don't want to. But I feel like, as an experiment, I feel that if I try to right injustices through anxiety, so it's just becoming more unjust.
You actually add to it.
You're just getting more unjust.
You're actually not helping them, and you're not helping yourself.
Yeah.
You're feeding it.
That's the experiment, right? And I'm just going to call it an experiment because let's just not talk in absolutes, or I'm not trying to say this is right or that some other way is wrong. Let's just say this is a possibility that you can experiment with your own life, right? And you can move from an open space, right? And that's what we want all our government and our community and our family to move from an open space, and to respect each other, right? We can do that when we feel each other, and when we close off to each other, and when we numb to a great part of society, when we numb to the Aboriginals, when we numb to, and then we're closing off, and we really can't feel each other, and so then we can't really run this experiment. And so then, that's what worked for me. That's my magic medicine. And then that medicine, what does it do? It puts me right here, right now. I'm in contact with you, and I can do a practice. I can do Vipassana retreat. I can go here. I can go there. I can see gurus, and I can do all that stuff. But I don't have to do any of it because this space comes before. This space, and I'm just going to call it again, the open space of good feeling. And we know when we're having a good feeling. And so then I'm suggesting that a positive thought is going to keep that space open. And that you're going to be most effective with that open space. You're going to be most effective in your life. You're going to be most effective in having in staying in presence and being here now. You're going to be most effective in running your family and doing your job without frictions, without anxieties, without angers, and it doesn't really matter how you explain or what story you tell about enlightening, awakening, or what jargon you use, or how you say that we're all oneness, or how you explain how the universe went together and how consciousness is growing, and it doesn't. None of that stuff really matters. It's just kind of like an openness that you can totally manage. Tell me.
How, I'm just challenging the assumption that pain and contraction and negative thought is anything of less value in entering into presence than staying in a positive open space. How do we know that one is of less value than another? It's like Eckhart Tolle was just ready to commit suicide and he couldn't stand his life any longer. He was in the most negative space imaginable, but then he surrendered to that absolute life.
Have you ever been in an accident?
Yeah.
A serious accident?
Mm-hmm.
And did that take you into presence?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
right.
like,
is that a good method? Is that how you want to do it?
It affects your physical if you're doing it through negative. If you're not staying open, then it affects your physical body.
Absolutely.
You become unwell.
You could become unwell.
Yes.
Right.
So
then you got more reason to close, right? Because you got fear. It's a loop. Totally calls it the pain body, right? So then, I mean, you're right that people pop. They go frantic, and then all of a sudden it's just too much, and it all just drops. But I don't know if let's just ask ourselves, in one time when people had swords and stuff, and they would sword fight and whatnot, I suppose they could freak out and do not too much damage. But now I wonder if the world is elastic enough to have everyone freak out and just go beyond the limit, and people have rocket launchers on their shoulder, and, I don't know if the world can take that. So then I'm hoping there's an easier way, and that's what I want to promote. And so then I'm not really going toward any kind of a jargon. I'm not going toward any kind of practices, and we can all do them. We are doing them. This is a practice. I don't meditate, but I'm meditating. I just fall into it. It just happens.
You just do it.
It just happens when I look in somebody's eyes.
So what I would like to see is
Thank you.
demonstration of that.
A demonstration.
Demonstration of that openness.
Didn't we demonstrate it?
This man here in front of me demonstrating that openness. Not talking about it, not reasoning about it, not coming from the identity, but demonstrating that openness.
I think we demonstrated it because, we were talking here and here, we were sharing, I was saying things, and then for me it just kind of flipped open. And I don't know if you all felt that. I think some of you did. And that was the demonstration for me. It was so beautiful. Did you receive that?
Well, we have gone away from that again.
Let's go back to it. really enjoyed being with you. I really enjoyed trying to say something that was as simple as I could say it, even though I brought into it with some turmoil and complex and confusion, right? Because like that's really it, huh?
I like the end when you explained it.
Yeah. You know, isn't that where we need to go, is into confusion? Because that's what we said, you know, what you said. It's even Eckhart Tolle, he couldn't stand it anymore, right? And so then we're going this way, we're going that way. And then nothing seemed to put together, nothing seemed to fit. And then they all just stopped, for me. I don't know if that happened to you.
Well, that's when you grow the most. When you're at your lowest point, that's when you grow the most. When you're at your lowest point, that's when you grow the most. Because that's when you're really asking. You're focusing on your higher self and the divine force, and you're really desperate. So that's when you really come into yourself, and that's when you have the chance to grow the most and open to the bigger picture.
I'm saying you can grow with or without that, because again, at your lowest point is at the point where there's the most stress, right? When you're believing in yourself and you're stressed with yourself, and
so that can be the awakening point.
That can be the awakening point, right? But do we all have to go through that? Maybe it'll come. Maybe it'll come. But I'm just trying to say it can be easy too.
Yes. Life's supposed to be easy.
It can be easy.
It's supposed to be easy.
Not supposed to?
It is supposed to be.
It is supposed to be easy, totally.
And as long as we're looking at all the things that we don't want, we're adding to it. But if that's giving us a feeling of, oh, I don't want to be here, that's the warning light to say, right, now what do I want? What situation would I like to see for them? How would I like to see that? That's the key point. That's always been the key point for me since I started to get in touch with what's actually going on inside me. And a negative feeling is a warning light. It's a red light. I'm out of touch of who I actually am and what I'm choosing at the moment. Now I can choose something that I do want.
I should have talked to you a long time ago. You would have saved me a lot of films. Yeah, a lot of words. Yeah, right. So, I think we...
But I did like the bit about what I did feel touched me was the injustices with the Indigenous people, and you know how we can be more aware of how the pain that we're creating there. That was my answer.
All over the world, you know, because we have navies, we have fleets, we send them out, you know, we threaten people. You know, especially me, because I'm a U.S.
Me back to my, you know, to my what goes on for me when I hear about, you know, the Maoris want this and that and the other thing, and so it sort of brought that home to me. It's like, hey, actually, I need to start to think about what I would actually like for them to start to put that into a positive for me.
Fantastic. Right. So thank you. Thank you very much.